The courtroom doors swing open and the atmosphere immediately shifts. There's a heaviness in the air, the kind that settles when lives are about to change forever. The bailiff's voice cuts through the murmuring crowd, commanding everyone to rise as Judge Lauren Lake enters with the weight of justice on her shoulders. She carries herself with a dignity that demands respect, her robes flowing behind her as she takes her seat at the bench. The gavel comes down once, sharp and final, and the room falls into absolute silence. This is not a place for games or half-truths. This is a courtroom where DNA doesn't lie, where secrets come to light, and where the lives of children hang in the balance. Today's case is particularly devastating, one that speaks to the deepest fears of anyone who has ever loved, trusted, and built a family with someone. On one side of the courtroom stands Marcus Thompson, 34 years old, his face drawn with exhaustion and betrayal. For 7 years, he believed he was a father. He changed diapers, walked the floors at night with a crying baby, attended school plays, and poured every dollar he could spare into providing for a child he loved with his whole heart. But 6 months ago, during a bitter argument, his ex-girlfriend Shanice Williams let something slip, something that shattered his entire world. She suggested, in a moment of anger, that maybe he wasn't the father after all. Those words have haunted Marcus every single day since. He's paid nearly $40,000 in child support over the years, money taken directly from his paychecks, money that meant he couldn't afford his own apartment, couldn't save for his future, couldn't move on with his life. And now he stands before this court, demanding answers, demanding a DNA test, demanding the truth that has been kept from him for far too long. On the other side of the courtroom is Shanice Williams, 29 years old, her arms crossed defensively across her chest, her eyes darting between Marcus and the judge. She looks scared, but there's also defiance in her posture, the kind that comes from someone who has been backed into a corner and doesn't know how to get out. She insists that Marcus is the father, that he's just trying to abandon his responsibilities, that he's using this DNA test as an excuse to walk away from the beautiful little girl who calls him daddy. But there's something in her voice, a tremor of uncertainty, a crack in the armor she's built around herself. Between them, in the testimony and the arguments and the pain that fills this courtroom, is a 7-year-old child named Aaliyah, who has no idea that the only father she's ever known is standing here questioning whether she's even his. Judge Lake looks at both parties with eyes that have seen this story play out 1,000 times before, each one as heartbreaking as the last. Judge Lake adjusts her glasses and looks down at the case file before her, taking a moment to let the gravity of the situation sink in for everyone present. Then she speaks, her voice clear and firm, cutting through the tension like a knife. Mr. Thompson, you have petitioned this court for a DNA test to determine whether you are the biological father of Aaliyah Thompson, age 7. You claim that you have paid nearly $40,000 in child support for a child that you now believe may not be yours. You've stated in your filing that the mother, Miss Williams, admitted during an argument that there was another man she was involved with around the time of conception. Is that correct? Marcus steps forward, his hands gripping the podium in front of him so tightly that his knuckles have gone white. When he speaks, his voice cracks with emotion. Yes, Your Honor, that's correct. For 7 years, I've been there for Aaliyah. I love that little girl more than anything in this world. I've sacrificed everything for her. I worked 2 jobs just to make sure she had everything she needed. I missed out on my own life, my own dreams, because I was trying to be the best father I could be, and then Shanice tells me during a fight that maybe I'm not even her father. She said there was someone else, someone she was with right around the same time we were together. She threw it in my face like it was nothing, like those 7 years meant nothing, like all that money and time and love meant nothing. His voice rises now, anger mixing with the pain. Do you know what that does to a man, Your Honor? Do you know what it feels like to look at a child you've raised and suddenly question everything? Every birthday, every Christmas, every moment I thought we were building something together, it's all tainted now. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I need to know the truth, and I need it now. The courtroom is silent except for the sound of someone in the gallery quietly crying. Judge Lake nods slowly, her expression compassionate but unwavering. I understand your pain, Mr. Thompson, and we will get to the truth today, but I need you to understand something. Whatever the results of this DNA test are, that little girl is still the same little girl she was yesterday. Her feelings, her needs, her love for you hasn't changed. Marcus's jaw tightens and he looks down at his hands. I know that, Your Honor, I know that. But I also need to know if I've been lied to for 7 years. Judge Lake turns her attention to Shanice, who shifts uncomfortably under the weight of that gaze. Miss Williams, you've heard what Mr. Thompson has said. He claims that during an argument you admitted there was another possible father. You've also stated in your response that Mr. Thompson is absolutely the father and that he's using this as an excuse to stop paying child support and abandon his daughter. Which is it? Because those are two very different stories and only one of them can be true. Shanice's voice comes out defensive, almost shrill. Your Honor, Marcus is twisting my words. Yes, we had a fight. Yes, I said some things I shouldn't have said, but I said them because I was angry. I was trying to hurt him the way he was hurting me. He was accusing me of cheating, accusing me of using him for money, and I just wanted him to feel the pain I was feeling. But I never said he wasn't Aaliyah's father. I said there was someone else I knew back then, but that doesn't mean anything happened. Marcus is the father. I know he is. I was with him during the time I got pregnant. This whole DNA test thing is just him trying to get out of her. His responsibilities, he met someone new and now suddenly he doesn't want to pay for his daughter anymore. Her voice cracks and tears start to form in her eyes. He's trying to destroy our daughter's life because he's moved on with his. That's the truth, Your Honor. That's what this is really about. Marcus explodes from his side of the courtroom, pointing an accusatory finger. That's a lie, Shanice. That is a complete lie. You know exactly what you said to me. You said, and I quote, maybe you're not even her father. Maybe it was Kevin. Those were your exact words. You can't stand there and pretend you didn't say that. You can't gaslight me in front of this whole courtroom. Judge Lake's gavel comes down hard, the sound echoing through the room. Mr. Thompson, you will control yourself in my courtroom or you will be removed. Do you understand me? Marcus takes a step back, his chest heaving, his eyes blazing. Yes, Your Honor. I'm sorry, but she's lying. She knows she's lying. Judge Lake looks between them both, her expression grave. We're going to get to the bottom of this, but first I need to hear the full story. Mr. Thompson, tell me about your relationship with Miss Williams. How did you meet? When did you get together? And when did things start to fall apart? Marcus takes a deep breath, trying to compose himself, trying to push down the rage and hurt that threatens to consume him. We met at a friend's party back in 2017. She was funny, beautiful, full of life. We hit it off right away. Within a few weeks, we were inseparable. She moved in with me after just 3 months, and honestly, Your Honor, I thought I'd found the one. I thought we were going to build a life together. A few months later, she told me she was pregnant. I was shocked, but I was also excited. I was ready to step up. I proposed to her right there in the living room. I didn't have a ring yet, but I got down on one knee and told her I wanted to marry her, that I wanted us to be a family. He pauses, and the pain in his eyes is visible to everyone watching. She said yes. We started planning a wedding. We were happy, at least I thought we were. But then things started to change. She became distant. She was always on her phone, always making excuses about where she'd been. I started to suspect something was wrong, but every time I asked her, she told me I was being paranoid, that the pregnancy hormones were making her emotional and she just needed space, so I backed off. I didn't want to stress her out while she was carrying our child. Aaliyah was born in March of 2018, and for a while, everything seemed perfect again. She was the most beautiful baby I'd ever seen. I fell in love with her the moment I held her. But as Aaliyah got older, Shanice and I kept fighting. She was secretive, always defensive. We broke up when Aaliyah was 2. That's when she filed for child support, and I paid it, Your Honor. I paid every single penny, even when it meant I couldn't pay my own rent. Even when it meant I had to move back in with my mother. I paid because that's what fathers do. That's what I was raised to believe. But now I'm sitting here wondering if I've been played for a fool this entire time. Shanice is shaking her head vigorously, tears streaming down her face now. That's not fair, Marcus. You're making it sound like I used you. I loved you. I wanted to marry you. But you were controlling and jealous, and you pushed me away. And now you're trying to rewrite history to make yourself look like the victim. Judge Lake raises her hand to silence them both. We're going to address all of this. But Miss Williams, I need you to answer a very direct question. Was there another man you were involved with around the time Aaliyah was conceived? The courtroom seems to hold its collective breath as Shanice stands there, her mouth opening and closing, words trying to form but not quite making it out. Finally, she speaks, and her voice is small, defeated. There was someone else. His name was Kevin. We had a history before I met Marcus. We were on and off for years, and yes, around the time I got pregnant, Kevin and I saw each other a few times, but it didn't mean anything, Your Honor. It was just old feelings, old habits. I was confused. I was young, but I knew Marcus was Aaliyah's father. I knew it in my heart. Marcus's face contorts with anguish and rage. You knew it in your heart. That's not science, Shanice. That's not proof. You let me believe for 7 years that I was her father without any doubt, and now you're standing there admitting you were sleeping with someone else. How am I supposed to trust anything you say? Judge Lake's voice cuts through the escalating argument. Mr. Thompson, I need you to calm down. I understand your anger, but we are going to handle this properly. Miss Williams, you've just admitted that there was another potential father. Did you ever tell Mr. Thompson this before Aaliyah was born? Shanice wipes her eyes with the back of her hand, smudging her mascara. No, Your Honor, I didn't tell him, because I didn't think it mattered. Marcus and I were together. We were in love. We were building a life. Kevin was just a mistake, a moment of weakness. I didn't want to ruin what Marcus and I had over something that didn't mean anything. Judge Lake leans forward, her expression stern. But it did mean something, Miss Williams. It meant there was a possibility that Marcus was not Aaliyah's biological father, and that's information he had a right to know. That's information that would have affected his decisions, his life, his finances, and most importantly, his relationship with that child. You took that choice away from him. Do you understand that? Shanice nods, sobbing now. I know, Your Honor. I know I should have told him, but I was scared. I was scared he'd leave me. I was scared he wouldn't want the baby if he thought there was even a chance she wasn't his. I was scared of being alone. So I convinced myself that it had to be Marcus. I convinced myself that. Timing made it impossible for Kevin to be the father, but I never knew for sure. I never took a test. I just hoped and prayed and told myself it was Marcus, because that's what I needed to be true. The weight of Shanice's confession hangs in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. Judge Lake sits back in her chair, her fingers steepled in front of her face, processing everything she's just heard. Marcus is standing at the podium, his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. The gallery is completely silent, everyone watching this man's world crumble in real time. When Judge Lake finally speaks, her voice is softer but no less authoritative. Mr. Thompson, I want you to take a moment and breathe. I know this is devastating. I know you feel betrayed and used and lied to, and you have every right to feel that way. Miss Williams has admitted that she withheld crucial information from you, information that has affected 7 years of your life and cost you $40,000. That is not acceptable. That is not fair. But I need you to understand something before we go any further. Right now, in this moment, you are still the only father Aaliyah has ever known. Regardless of what the DNA test says, you have been her dad for 7 years. You've been the one she calls when she's scared. You've been the one who tucked her in at night. You've been the one who showed her what a father's love looks like. That little girl loves you, Mr. Thompson, and I need to know, before we reveal these results, if you're prepared for whatever the answer is, because if you are not her biological father, you're going to have to make a decision about what role you want to play in her life moving forward, and that decision will affect her for the rest of her life. Marcus looks up, his face wet with tears, his expression tortured. Your Honor, I love Aaliyah. I love her so much it hurts. But I don't know if I can keep doing this if she's not mine. Every time I look at her, I'm going to wonder. I'm going to see Shanice's lies. I'm going to see all the money I paid, all the sacrifices I made, and I'm going to feel like a fool. That's not fair to Aaliyah. She deserves a father who can look at her without resentment, and I don't know if I can be that person if she's not mine. His honesty is brutal, raw, and it cuts through everyone in the room. Shanice is sobbing openly now, her hands covering her face. Marcus, please, please don't say that. She needs you. I know I messed up. I know I should have been honest, but please don't punish Aaliyah for my mistakes. She's innocent in all of this. Judge Lake takes a folder from her desk, the folder that contains the answer to the question that has brought them all here today. The DNA test results, the truth that cannot be argued with or denied. She looks at both Marcus and Shanice, and when she speaks, every word is measured and deliberate. Before I open these results, I want both of you to understand something. DNA determines biological parentage, but it does not determine love. It does not determine commitment. It does not determine what kind of person you are or what kind of parent you choose to be. There are men who share DNA with children and abandon them without a second thought, and there are men who have no biological connection to a child and love them as fiercely as any father could. The question before this court today is about biology, yes. It's about truth and honesty and the consequences of deception. But it's also about responsibility. It's about what it means to be a parent, and it's about a little girl who did not ask to be born into this situation, but who is going to have to live with the consequences of the decisions the adults in her life have made. She opens the folder slowly, dramatically, letting the tension build. Marcus is gripping the podium so hard it looks like he might break it. Shanice has gone pale, her breathing shallow. The entire courtroom leans forward, waiting. Judge Lake's eyes scan the document in front of her, and for just a moment her expression shifts, revealing something, a sadness, a resignation, an understanding of just how much pain is about to be unleashed. She looks up at Marcus, and when she speaks, her voice is gentle but firm. In the case of Thompson versus Williams regarding the paternity of Aaliyah Thompson, age 7, the court has received the results of the DNA test conducted by our certified laboratory. She pauses, and the silence is deafening. Mr. Thompson, you are not the biological father of Aaliyah Thompson. The words hang in the air like a death sentence. For a moment, no one moves, no one breathes. And then Marcus collapses against the podium, a sound escaping his throat that is somewhere between a sob and a scream. It is the sound of a man who has just had his worst fears confirmed, who has just learned that everything he believed about his life for the past 7 years was built on a lie. Shanice's legs give out and she sinks to the floor, her hands pressed against her face, her body racked with sobs that echo through the courtroom. The gallery erupts in gasps and murmurs, people turning to each other in shock, in sympathy, in judgment. Judge Lake allows the emotion to flow for a moment, understanding that sometimes people need to break before they can begin to heal. But after a moment, she speaks again, her voice cutting through the chaos. Miss Williams, stand up and face the consequences of what you've done. Shanice struggles to her feet, her makeup completely ruined, her eyes red and swollen. She can barely look at Marcus, who is still leaning against the podium, his entire body shaking. Judge Lake's expression is stern now, disappointed. The look of a woman who has seen too many lives destroyed by lies and selfishness. Miss Williams, you stood in this courtroom and insisted that Mr. Thompson was the father. You accused him of trying to abandon his responsibilities. You painted yourself as the victim, but the DNA does not lie. You allowed this man to believe he was a father for 7 years. You took $40,000 from him, money he scraped together while working 2 jobs, money he needed for his own survival. You took 7 years of his life, 7 years he will never get back. And you did it all because you were scared. You were scared of being alone. You were scared of facing the truth. And so you made Marcus Thompson pay the price for your fear. Shanice is sobbing so hard she can barely stand. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I thought he was the father. I really did. I convinced myself. Judge Lake's voice rises, powerful and uncompromising. You convinced yourself because it was convenient. You convinced yourself because Marcus was the one who was there, the one who was stable, the one who would take care of you and your child. But you knew there was doubt. You knew there was another possibility. And instead of being honest, instead of giving Marcus the information he needed to make an informed decision, you lied. You lied by omission, and that is still a lie, and now a little girl has to suffer the consequences. Marcus finally finds his voice, and when he speaks, it's barely above a whisper, but the pain in it is unmistakable. 7 years, Shannis, 7 years of my life. Do you have any idea what you've done to me? Do you have any idea what this means? I can't get that time back. I can't get that money back. I can't get back the relationships I didn't pursue because I was focused on being a father. I can't get back the opportunities I turned down because I had to work extra shifts to pay child support. You stole my life from me, and for what? Because you were scared, because you didn't want to be alone. He looks at Judge Lake, his face a mask of anguish. Your Honor, I want every penny of that child support back. I want restitution. I want her held accountable for what she's done. Judge Lake nods slowly. Mr. Thompson, I understand your anger and your desire for restitution, and legally you may have grounds to pursue that. I will refer you to a family law attorney who can help you explore your options. However, I need you to understand that the process will be long and difficult, and there's no guarantee you'll recover those funds. Miss Williams, you are being ordered by this court to return to Mr. Thompson any and all child support payments received over the past 7 years, totaling approximately $40,000. You will have the option to set up a payment plan, but this debt must be repaid. Do you understand? Shannis nods, unable to speak. Judge Lake continues, her voice softening slightly but still carrying the weight of authority. Now we come to the most difficult part of this case. Mr. Thompson, you are not biologically related to Aaliyah. You have no legal obligation to continue being a part of her life. However, I want you to think very carefully about what that means. That little girl has known you as her father. 7 years she has bonded with you. She loves you. If you walk away now, you will be leaving a void in her life that may never be filled. The question I need you to answer, not today, but in the days and weeks to come, is whether you can find it in your heart to continue being a father to her. Despite the lack of biological connection, Marcus looks up at Judge Lake, his eyes red and hollow. Your Honor, with all due respect, I don't know if I can do that. Every time I look at her, I'm going to be reminded of this betrayal. I'm going to be reminded of the 7 years I lost, the $40,000 I paid, the lies I was told. I love Aaliyah, but I don't know if that love is enough to overcome the resentment I feel, and I don't think it's fair to her to have a father who looks at her with resentment. Judge Lake nods, understanding but clearly disappointed. I hear you, Mr. Thompson, and I'm not going to force you to maintain a relationship with a child you have no legal obligation to. But I am going to tell you something, and I need you to listen carefully. Aaliyah did not choose any of this. She did not choose to be born. She did not choose her mother's actions. She did not choose the circumstances that brought her into this world. She is an innocent child who has done nothing wrong. And if you walk away from her now, she will spend the rest of her life wondering what she did to make you stop loving her. She will internalize this rejection. She will carry it with her into every relationship she ever has. She will wonder if she's worthy of love, if she's worthy of staying. That is the burden you will place on her if you leave. So before you make that decision, I want you to think about the man you want to be. Not the man who was betrayed, not the man who was lied to, but the man you want to be when you look at yourself in the mirror 10 years from now. Do you want to be the man who walked away from a little girl who loves you, or do you want to be the man who rose above the circumstances and chose love anyway? The courtroom is silent. Marcus is crying openly now, his face in his hands, his whole body shaking with the weight of the decision before him. Shannis is on her knees, her hands pressed together in prayer, begging silently for mercy, for understanding, for a chance to make this right. Judge Lake turns her attention back to Shannis, her expression harder now, less forgiving. Miss Williams, you need to understand the gravity of what you've done. You did not just lie to Mr. Thompson, you lied to your daughter. You allowed her to build a relationship with a man under false pretenses. You allowed her to call him daddy, to love him, to trust him, all while knowing there was a possibility he wasn't her biological father. And now, when the truth has finally come out, she is the one who will suffer the most. Not you, not Mr. Thompson. Aaliyah, that is the consequence of your actions, and you are going to have to live with that for the rest of your life. Shanice is sobbing, her words barely coherent. I know, Your Honor, I know I messed up. I know I should have been honest from the beginning. I was selfish. I was scared. I was stupid. But I love my daughter. I love her more than anything, and I just want what's best for her. If Marcus can find it in his heart to stay in her life, even part-time, even just as a friend, it would mean the world to her. She needs him. She needs someone stable, someone who loves her. I've already taken so much from him. I don't want to take anything more from Aaliyah. Judge Lake leans forward, her eyes boring into Shanice. Then you need to find Kevin. You need to locate Aaliyah's biological father and inform him that he has a daughter. That child deserves to know where she comes from. She deserves to have the opportunity to know her biological father if he's willing to step up. And Kevin deserves to know that he has a child. You've robbed both of them of that knowledge for 7 years. It's time to make that right. Shanice nods frantically. I'll find him, Your Honor. I'll tell him. I'll do whatever I need to do to make this right. Judge Lake sits back, her expression weary. This court cannot force Mr. Thompson to maintain a relationship with Aaliyah. However, this court strongly encourages him to consider the impact his decision will have on this child. Mr. Thompson, you have been ordered to receive full restitution of child support payments, Miss Williams. You have been ordered to repay those funds and to locate the biological father of your child. This case is concluded, but the lives affected by it will continue long after you leave this courtroom. I urge both of you to put Aaliyah first in whatever decisions you make moving forward. That little girl deserves better than this. Court is adjourned. The gavel comes down with a sharp crack, and the courtroom slowly begins to empty. Marcus remains at the podium, his head bowed, his shoulders slumped. Shanice is being helped out by a friend, her legs barely able to carry her. The cameras capture every moment, every tear, every ounce of pain and regret and heartbreak. This is not a story with a happy ending. This is not a case where justice feels clean and satisfying. This is real life, messy and complicated and full of consequences that will ripple forward for years to come. As the courtroom clears, the question hanging in the air is the one that Judge Lake posed to Marcus. What kind of man does he want to be? The man who was betrayed and walks away, or the man who chooses love despite the circumstances? And for Shanice, the question is whether she can ever truly atone for the damage she's caused, whether she can rebuild the trust she's destroyed, and whether she can find Kevin and give Aaliyah the opportunity to know her biological father. And for Aaliyah, the innocent child at the center of this storm, the question is whether she will grow up feeling abandoned and unloved, or whether the adults in her life will find a way to put aside their hurt and anger and give her the stability and love she deserves. In the days following the case, the story doesn't end. Marcus goes home to his small apartment, the one he could finally afford after years of struggling under the weight of child support payments. He sits alone in the dark, staring at photos of Aaliyah on his phone. Photos of her first birthday, her first day of school, the time they went to the zoo and she laughed so hard she could barely breathe. He remembers the way she used to run into his arms when he picked her up, the way she called him daddy with complete trust and love. And he realizes that Judge Lake was right. Aaliyah did nothing wrong. She's just a little girl caught in the crossfire of adult mistakes. Shanice, meanwhile, begins the painful process of tracking down Kevin. It takes weeks, but she finally finds him living in another state, working construction, unaware that he has a daughter. The conversation is awkward and painful. Kevin is shocked, angry, confused. He demands a DNA test before he'll believe anything Shanice says. And when that test comes back positive, confirming that he is Aaliyah's biological father, he's faced with his own impossible decision. Kevin is 30, 2 years old, unmarried, living a bachelor's life that doesn't include room for a 7-year-old daughter. He never wanted kids. He and Shanice were never serious, just a casual thing that happened on and off for a few years. The idea that he's now responsible for a child he never knew existed is overwhelming. But when Shanice shows him a picture of Aaliyah, something shifts in his expression. He sees himself in her eyes, in the shape of her face. He sees a part of himself that he didn't know was missing. After several long conversations, Kevin agrees to meet Aaliyah, to start slowly building a relationship with her. It's awkward at first. Aaliyah is confused about who this strange man is and why her mom keeps saying he's important. She asks about Marcus constantly. She wants to know when Daddy is coming back. She doesn't understand why Marcus hasn't called, why he hasn't come to see her. Shanice tries to explain in terms of 7-year-old can understand, but how do you tell a child that the man she thought was her father isn't, and that he's walked away because the truth hurt too much? How do you explain betrayal and DNA and adult mistakes to someone who still believes in fairy tales and happy endings? The transition is brutal for everyone involved. Kevin tries his best, but he doesn't know how to be a father. He buys Aaliyah toys and takes her to movies, but he doesn't know her favorite color or what she's afraid of or how to braid her hair. He's learning, but it's a steep learning curve, and Aaliyah can feel the difference between Kevin's uncertain affection and Marcus's effortless love. 3 months after the court case, Marcus receives a letter from Shanice. In it, she apologizes again, not because she thinks it will change anything, but because she needs him to know that she understands the magnitude of what she did. She tells him about Kevin, about how he's trying to step up, but also about how Aaliyah cries for Marcus every night. She doesn't ask him to come back. She doesn't beg or plead. She simply tells him that if he ever changes his mind, the door is open. Marcus reads the letter 3 times, each time feeling the knife twist a little deeper in his heart. One evening, 4 months after the verdict, Marcus finds himself driving past Aaliyah's school right as it's letting out. He doesn't plan it. He's not even sure how he ended up there. But suddenly he sees her, backpack bouncing on her shoulders, talking animatedly to another little girl. She looks happy, or at least she's pretending to be. But then Marcus sees her stop and look around, and for just a moment her face falls. She's looking for someone. She's looking for him, and in that moment Marcus realizes that Judge Lake was right. He has a choice to make about what kind of man he wants to be. He can continue to nurse his hurt and anger and betrayal. He can continue to feel like a victim of Shanice's lies, or he can choose to be the bigger person. He can choose to love Aaliyah despite the circumstances. He can choose to be her father, not because biology says he has to, but because love says he can. It's not an easy decision. It requires him to let go of the resentment, to forgive, not for Shanice's sake, but for his own and for Aaliyah's. It requires him to redefine what fatherhood means, to understand that being a dad is about more than shared DNA. It's about showing up. It's about being present. It's about loving someone unconditionally, even when the conditions have changed. 2 weeks later, Marcus calls Shanice. The conversation is brief and awkward. He tells her he wants to see Aaliyah not as her legal father, but as someone who cares about her and wants to make sure she's okay. Shanice agrees immediately, relief flooding her voice. When Marcus shows up at Shanice's apartment, Aaliyah is playing in the living room. The moment she sees him, she drops her toys and runs across the room, launching herself into his arms with a force that nearly knocks him over. She's crying and laughing at the same time, saying his name over and over. "Daddy, you came back. You came back." And Marcus holds her tight, tears streaming down his face, and he realizes that this is where he's supposed to be. Not because a court ordered it, not because biology dictates it, but because this little girl needs him, and he needs her too. Over the following months, a new normal begins to take shape. Marcus doesn't resume full custody or go back to the way things were. Instead, he and Shanice work out an informal arrangement where he can spend time with Aaliyah regularly. Kevin is still in the picture too, trying to build his own relationship with his daughter. It's complicated and messy, and there are moments when the adults involved struggle with jealousy and insecurity and old wounds. But they're trying, all of them, because Aaliyah deserves adults who can put their pain aside and prioritize her well-being. Marcus also pursues legal action to recover the child support he paid, and after a lengthy process, the court orders Shanice to repay the money in installments. It's a small victory, but an important one. It acknowledges that what happened to him was wrong, that he was deceived, and that there are consequences for that deception. But more importantly, Marcus learns to redefine what family means. He learns that love is a choice, not an obligation. He learns that the strongest bonds are sometimes the ones we choose to maintain, not the ones biology forces upon us. And he learns that forgiveness, while incredibly difficult, is the only path forward that doesn't leave everyone trapped in bitterness and regret. Aaliyah, for her part, begins to understand that she has two dads now, one who shares her blood and one who shares her history. It's confusing, and there are hard days when she doesn't understand why things can't just be simple like they are for other kids. But she also knows, deep in her heart, that she is loved, fiercely, completely, unconditionally, and maybe that's what matters most. If you were in that courtroom, watching Marcus struggle with the decision of whether to walk away or stay, what would you have told him? Would you have encouraged him to cut ties and protect himself from further pain? Or would you have urged him to rise above the betray and choose love? These are the questions that haunt everyone who watches cases like this, because they force us to confront what we truly believe about family, responsibility, and the meaning of parenthood. There are no easy answers, no clear right or wrong. There's only the messy, complicated reality of human relationships and the choices we make within them.